question to you, Anita, is about, from a brand engagement perspective, building that connect with the consumer on the move, anywhere, anytime. Where do you see this play heading? How do you think it would help in terms of boosting or lack thereof of brand engagement?
The consumption is happening across screens, so irrespective if a brand has to be present in that one-day life of a customer, then the brand has to ensure that across those screens there is seamless availability so that the consumer is consuming that along with the relevant content. Well, I think the challenge that we have, I don't know about many other countries, but in India, is that the understanding of the communication of a brand across various devices varies. So it is not as though I can just take my television ad and put it on a mobile, or put it on the net, or wherever the content is being consumed from. So I think from that perspective also, as Amitesh rightfully said, that the journalist should be able to actually curate something which is across the devices available. What here is being done as of now, and I think we are again improving in that direction, is just adapting what is there. So you actually have to have specific communication which goes across these devices for the consumer to be consuming that in that environment. Right. So relevance is one thing, and also the adaptability of messaging by a brand on that screen is also extremely important.
Absolutely.
If I can just add to that.
Sure, go ahead.
Just taking off exactly from there. So yeah, reach is important, and in the old world we used to say we'll run a TV commercial and then we'll also put up a billboard, and that 1 + 1 is bigger than 2. That same principle applies now, and you can do it across many platforms, right? I can reach people as much as I want, and cross-platform will help me reach more often, but that doesn't yet guarantee that people will listen to me.
Immersive. How immersive can you get?
Engagement opportunities are absolutely incredible with cross-platform, and that it's just imagination. At the end of the day, you need to be creative enough and imaginative enough to learn how to use this stuff.
Perfect. So Karthik, we take on from here and look at branded, experiences on the web. So clearly, custom creation of brands persona will have to be one of the things that advertisers need to look at, because just transporting a TV or a print ad with on this cross-platform play is sheer laziness, for want of a better word. So, what are your views on branded, branded advertising opportunities which are custom created for cross-platform play?
It's actually a pretty big challenge to figure out that fine balance between creating a branded content which is not so over-branded that people reject it.
That's correct.
Fortunately or unfortunately, a consumer is coming to any medium not for advertising. He's coming there for content. Being present within the content, being an enabler of content is a position that brands can very comfortably take, but actually becoming bigger than what the content is tends to not only impact the brand but also impact the content platform.
True.
So that's a fine balance that one needs to find out. And honestly, if you ask me, is there a formula that we have right now? Unfortunately, I don't know of any such formula which exists. In terms of actually brands working towards creating content, there are brands which are moving into that space, getting into creating excitement, creating fun for the consumers, and then finally tying it all in with a brand, with a branded experience. So this whole thing is now enabling us, and that's really what the digital space has given us, is that we are no longer dependent upon a single viewing. We can use digital, use multimedia to build stories and build longer stories. And that longer story is what is going to build connections with brands rather than an attempt to deliver all the messages at a single shot.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I would see content creation.
Let me ask this of Adam. He talked about brands telling stories. So ultimately, branding is about storytelling. In your view, Adam, which categories do you think would be the early adapters of this cross-platform play? Could it be banking and financial industries, consumer industries? Your just top of the line thoughts.
I think, honestly, I think that we're seeing examples of brands that are doing this across pretty much all categories, to be honest. I think any company that is forward thinking just in terms of how to more creatively reach and engage their audiences. I was talking with a brand just yesterday, and they were saying, hey, when times are good and there's growth in our business, we can kind of just do advertising as we've done in the past, and it's great. But we know if there's going to be any kind of downturn or slow in growth, what will differentiate us is the kind of marketing we're doing and engagement we're doing with our users today. And I think it's brands that have that approach, that forward-looking approach to say, hey, the more deeply I engage my audiences today is what's going to impact my business, not just in the next couple months, but the kind of loyalty and opportunity I'm going to have in the future. And I think when you've got a brand that is taking that kind of attitude, they are looking for these more immersive experiences to have with their audiences. And I think that's, a lot of what we're talking about today is how more immersively and creatively can we bring brands into some of the digital experiences that we know our consumers are going to be enjoying. I think one of the opportunities that brands have in kind of the new MSN and some of the things we talked about today is exactly what you're talking about, the do more element. Having do more meaning more utility type of resources and tools in the product mean people are going to be getting things done and completing tasks, and they're going to have purchase intent or task intent, right? So naturally, I think one way, to be honest, a very basic level of targeting is we're able to bring brands into very specific experiences within the new MSN. Meaning, in the food and drink category, if we want to have a brand over the recipe section or a subsection of that vertical, we can do that. And brands can we have pretty unique engagement opportunities for brands to be part of that. And so that naturally, by bringing them into different parts of the site, will bring them closer to those intent-related scenarios. That's one thing. Two is, I think your question's around cross-screen. The experience of being able to bring brands across screen, both in the apps as well as in the browse scenario, is definitely going to be there. It's not just the cookie-based targeting, but it's also the fact that users are going to be identified by this Microsoft ID that will carry with them across. So the level of targeting and sequential following of that user across screen is enabled significantly by the fact that we're able to tie it with this profile by the user. And the platform technology that I alluded to earlier that we're implementing to power this kind of cross-screen connection for brands is a piece of technology that we're launching here in India in the coming months in conjunction with the launch of the new MSN. And that does power some of this more advanced targeting capability, not only across MSN, but across other Microsoft properties. And this is where it becomes really interesting, because we know that we've got users accessing Outlook.com or Skype, for example, or doing Bing search, or doing using MSN on the mobile or on the PC. And those are at very different points during the day of a user. And so being able to do that targeting not only within MSN, but across the different Microsoft properties is something powered by this platform technology that I talked about. And that will also be programmatically. We'll have a programmatic element to that as well. The biggest difference between a brand, I don't know if everyone heard the question, between a brand kind of creating their own experience, whether it's an app or on a website or whatever, versus kind of doing that within the MSN experience we're talking about today. The biggest difference, to be quite honest, is what's your automatic reach, right? anytime a brand creates an app, they've got to figure out a whole distribution strategy, right? Exactly. How do I get that that app distributed? How do I bring users into that experience? And you might have your own marketing channels and dollars that you put behind that. But I think one of the things that we feel is a big opportunity is we have an automatic reach of a user base that we have on MSN in India alone. That's just under 15 million automatically. That's going to grow dramatically as we introduce the apps on the mobile devices across Android and iOS. So when you create an experience or a connection, whether it's the native ad, whether it's the branded experience that Ken talked about earlier, that will reach the audience we have today. And I think that's a huge kind of leap forward for brands to connect with a broader set of audiences. The second thing in terms of analytics, we will have analytics behind it. Yeah. Some of this in terms of what kind of analytics we're going to have behind this new MSN experience, I think is still being figured out because we're just
analytics are there, whether it's Omniture or ComScore or our in-house Cosmos, as detailed as looking at the click factor, where it's coming from, time spent, which section viewed, all that's going to be a part of the analytics. So besides the reach which Adam talked about, another thing is the multi-platform and multi-screen capability that these branded experience will provide, because otherwise an app is an app and may not be adaptable to the big screen, which is the web. What we offer is a multi-screen adaptability across platform play. So, and richness of visuals, larger play, dipping into the overall ecosystem of the MSN consumer base, and actually leveraging that to brand's advantage. These are some of the pluses.
The ad industry, this gets sometimes mixed understanding until people understand it deeply. We are really committed across the portfolio of services that we're offering the consumer from Microsoft. We're standing behind a principle that these are designed consumer first. We're not designing these products for the purpose of making money on advertising. We're designing these products and experiences to be great for a consumer. And that's going to be great across the different devices that people will access these services through. And we believe if we do that, if that principle stands first, our audiences will grow. We're going to build these loyal, excited consumers that are deeply engaged in these experiences, and we will smartly integrate brands into those experiences where it makes sense from the consumer perspective. And when brands start to really see this and we start to bring them in more meaningful ways, brands also will agree. It makes more sense for me to become present in your user experience in a more additive way than a invasive way in terms of interrupting the consumer experience. You think about brands in the food and drink category that might have recipes that they'd like to have exposed to an audience. Well, that's additive to the user because we bring more recipes into the experience, and a brand might have some coverage and exposure over that. That's a win-win from a consumer and the advertiser perspective. I think that's one example, but there's many of them.
While we talked about the cross-platform play, we talked about the technology bandwidth. Really, what we've done with the new MSN is actually we've gone back to the basic. The first P of marketing, which is the product. So your product is your visiting card. It's your biggest, messenger. We focused very, very, deeply on the product, and we've got it right. And hopefully, customers will follow that, and when the customers follow, the brands will automatically follow the customers. So thank you all for joining us, and please give a hand to our panelists for such an enriching discussion. Thank you very much.